Nika is not the sun god, he's actually a moon god. We've talked about this idea a little bit on this channel before, but why would this even matter? Well, in this video, we're gonna explore exactly why the moon might just be the most important place in all of One Piece, the home to both the moon god and the devil, and how exactly Nika turned from the moon god into the sun god down on the blue planets. So I guess what I'm saying here is, guys, they got it all wrong. The Giants of Elbaf, the Gorosei who've been around for hundreds of years, even world's smartest boy, Vegapunk, did mess up here. Because like we just said, Nika is not the sun god, he's very obviously the moon god. But hold up, why do I actually say this? Everyone and their mom has been calling him the sun god Nika, so am I just being a contrarian here? Is this another Manu crackpot theory? Am I insane in the membrane? Well, let's just run down a few of the truly many reasons that Nika is totally related to the moon and not the sun whatsoever. And then of course, we'll also get to how Imu is a part of all this as well. So, the very first time that Luffy transforms into Gear 5 and hits that very iconic at this point Nika pose, one of the most iconic anime scenes of all time at this point, what do we see right behind him? A giant full moon? You're absolutely right. It is a giant full moon, not a giant full sun, or even a half sun, not even a waxing gibbous sun. That's because the sun doesn't have phases, silly, but do you know what does? The moon does. You know, waning crescent, waxing gibbous, I love that word, gotta say it twice. You learn about them in primary school and then forgot about them until I reminded you about them right now. Your teacher probably showed you a chart that looked something like this here. Oh, wait, this kind of looks familiar, but why? Where have I seen this exact symbol before in One Piece? Like a million times it feels at this point. Oh! Yeah, that's right. That's the Joy Boy symbol, you know, the flag that represents the guy who had the sun god Nika fruit before Luffy. Like, you could say that this symbol is an abstract sun, and I've also been partial to the idea that, you know, the 8 circles also represent 8 countries that might have been allied with Joy Boy or the Great Kingdom, which I think could also be true at the same time, or be true instead, right? But I mean, come on, look at that. This is quite literally the Joy Boy symbol, just with the circles filled in, basically. It's the same thing that we've seen on Nika and Joy Boy's shields, on one of the sails within the mural, and hidden in tons of Joy Boy allied countries' flags. You know about them, but just for example, it's in Wano's Kozuki crest, right? And while we're talking about Wano, let's also not forget that all the noble families of Wano are mostly named after the moon. Kozuki means light moon. Shimotsuki means frost moon, and so on, with Kurozumi being literally the only family that doesn't fit in this pattern since, you know, Orochi's the bad guy. So you'd think that maybe all of these moon families would find some sort of moon god to team up with, and I think that's exactly what they did. They were the allies of the moon god Nika. And that's of course far from the only moon connection we have for Nika as well. Now, if you're watching the channel regularly, I will point out a bunch of the stuff we're talking about you might have heard me throw out in different videos here and there, so it might not sound new to you. We're gonna have a very different conclusion today, and also there's probably some new evidence that you haven't seen, but you know, if some of this stuff sounds familiar, we've talked about parts of this for sure. So, what happens when Luffy actually awakens his fruit, right? Well, yes, he does also become a character basically a straight out of Tom and Jerry and starts laughing uncontrollably, but I'm talking about the other thing. Yeah, that one. The red eyes and the white, flame-like hair, and also, the clothes. It's basically his signature Gear 5 Luffy look. It's that Gear 5 drip that I love very much. I have a shirt like that. I should have worn it for this video, but hey, Sanji's here. Now, who else transforms into a more powerful form with red eyes and white hair? Mahody Jones doesn't count, he's disqualified from the competition for using energy steroids, but we're talking about, yes, the Minks and their Sulong transformation. You know what was coming, and at least last time I checked in the story, Carrot doesn't go absolute beast mode in direct sunlight, it's only under the light of a full moon. Okay, so I'm predicting the future with my crystal ball here, and I see a bunch of people in the comment section saying, but moonlight is sunlight, Manu, it's just reflected off the moon, and to which I say, I just wish that you would bring that same logic and energy to werewolf stories before you come after my closer personal friends, who are the Minks, who are unquestionably werewolves here, Minks right up here. Just saying. The new leader of whom is now Carrot, and her being a rabbit is actually pretty significant as well as far as the moon connections go. See, if you live in the West, you're probably familiar with the concept of the man in the moon, but in Asia, including Japan, and also a lot of indigenous American cultures, the visible shapes on the moon are interpreted as looking a lot more like a rabbit. Yeah, and I can kind of see it. Now, this connection has featured in tons of anime and video games. A lot of Americans might have been a little bit confused by Super Mario Odyssey featuring a bunch of bad guys that were rabbits from the moon. But Dragon Ball also has referenced it when Goku put that one rabbit guy on the moon, for example. Sailor Moon's real name, Tsukino Usagi, quite literally means rabbit of the moon. It's basically all over the place, and there is no surprise that Carrot, the leader of the Minks who transforms under the full moon, is also referencing this very popular cultural idea. Now, yet another big Japanese myth involves, of course, the moon princess Kaguya, which you'll definitely be familiar with if you're into, like, Naruto, but given that Oda references Japanese folklore all the frickin' time, I wouldn't be surprised to see some aspects showing up here as well. Specifically, Luffy in Gear 5 might actually tie into the idea of the elixir of immortality that Princess Kaguya drinks on the moon, which is said to be produced on the moon by the moon people, or even sometimes by that rabbit that lives on the moon. In fact, the Chinese legend of Shani also features a moon goddess with a moon rabbit living on the moon palace with the elixir of immortality. It's a trend, right? Everyone's doing it. Also, very quickly before we move on, I think now's the point to come clear with something. I actually wanted to do a moon video way earlier, and my team actually hardcore vetoed it because my idea was like, wait, what if Emu is actually a rabbit from the moon? And I was like, I like sent an image to my team chat where I was like, wait, I mean, look at the shape and like the weird, like how the head goes like this. I was like, what if that's rabbit ears? Could be, and they live forever, elixir of life. So just so you know, even my team shoots down some crackpot theories that I have. Just wanted to, out of the fairness of my heart, share with you that I got very excited about Emu potentially being a rabbit under that hood, like a mink, which would have been absolutely hilarious to put out as a video and then have the big Emu reveal. But yeah, just so you know, like that was something I was like actually considering talking about, and I guess thanks to my team for reining me in sometimes. Bringing this back to our boy now though, there's a lot of weird stuff going on with Luffy's rapid aging whenever he uses Gear 5, as well as Emu and the Holy Knight's immortality, so I'm not sure exactly how it'll play out, but if we get some kind of elixir of life type of thing, or like the Philosopher's Stone or something appearing in the story, I'm just saying I'm not gonna be too surprised, because it, like at this point, it kind of feels like it needs to show up. But moving away now from the more mythological connections, let's get back into One Piece itself, because I haven't even started to touch on why the moon is already, of course, confirmed to be extremely important to the series. And why I'm pretty sure that not only is Nika a moon god, but that he is actually from the moon originally to begin with. And you know what time it is now. It's time to talk about the cover story. You know what's coming, right? I talk about it in basically every second video, but the video about the moon, yeah, I'm gonna talk about it. You know the one, so let's talk about Enel. Or actually, I guess Enel himself isn't all that important to this. It's more about what he found when he finally reached the fairy Verth. Up there were the remains of a civilization called Burka, which also shares its name with the Sky Island where Enel and his priests originally came from that got destroyed. It's a sprawling cityscape built underneath the surface of the moon. It's filled to the brim with ancient technology that could be powered by Enel's devil fruit, an entire robot army that Enel's now awakened, and it has the murals before the Elbaf mural, actually way before the Elbaf mural ever existed. All I'm saying is that these are like some OG murals, man, and I like murals before they were cool. Now, probably the mural hipster, I guess. Probably the most important thing that these murals showed us, though, are that the winged races of the One Piece world that we met on Skypiea originally came from the moon as well. There was a message left behind that said that they went to the blue planet in search of resources, presumably after exhausting whatever existed on the moon. And so it would seem that Burka, the Sky Island, was actually colonized by winged beings from outer space, and the same goes for the Skypians, and based on the name Lunarian, literally having the word lunar in it, I think we can definitely assume that they are also probably from the moon. Now, the really strange thing here is that on these moon murals, we never have seen anyone with black wings depicted. And there's notably also no one with black wings on the side of the Elbaf mural depicting the first world either, just a white-winged guy. It's almost like some kind of world-ending event permanently turned some of the moon's people's wings black. Curious. I certainly won't revisit this idea specifically at the end of this video for the big payoff. That would be crazy. No way, Jose. But to be fair now, most of this, the winged races are from the moon stuff, we've actually known about for a long time now. But what does this have to do with the god Nika? Well, I do think that Nika was one of the beings that originally came from the moon. In fact, I think that the devil that Imu's fruit is based on is also from the moon. But that raises some other questions too, so let's explain things by turning the clock all the way back, not to the first world of One Piece described in the Harley text. I want to go back even before that, to the world number 0, I guess. So, there was no sun god, there was no earth god, there were no gods at all, just the One Piece planet in its natural state. But then came the invaders from the moon, colonizing the planet and harvesting its resources. Winged beings, impervious and powerful, with flames at their back and the ability to manipulate fire itself. They conquered the entire planet, enslaving those who lived there and forcing them to extract the planet's most precious resource, an endless source of energy deep within the planet that came to be known as the Forbidden Sun. I actually covered a lot of these ideas back in my 4 Ages mega theory, and with what we're getting in the story right now, I'm only becoming more confident in some of these ideas actually. In it, I speculate that the 4 gods, the sun, earth, forest, and sea, or rain gods, aren't actually divine beings with magical powers at all, but instead that these were extraterrestrial beings whose power just seemed divine like magic to those who lived down on the planet originally, and in myths and legends, they then later became known as gods. Now, since the Elbaf cover story tells us that these guys were here to harvest the resources of the planet, I actually kind of believe that these 4 positions kind of had to do with terraforming the planet in some way, shape, or form, or at the very least with harvesting its individual resources. Because if you really look again at this list, it's not typical of your usual god lineup after all. You might expect to get like the classical elements of earth, fire, water, and air, but instead we get sun, earth, forest, and rain, which are all much closer to things that you need for agriculture specifically. Therefore, I believe that all 4 gods actually came from the moon. Nika has all of these associations to the moon because that's his home, it's where his people, his technology, and everything else is actually from. But before I explain how he became known as the sun god, I want to talk about his fellow Lunarian first, Imu, or I guess more accurately, the god or devil that his fruit is actually based on, because Norona Imu is supposed to be a king from the blue planet, but just like Nika, I think that the devil that lives inside Imu is a Lunarian. And for now, I'm just gonna call that devil Mu, the name that Emu kind of uses to refer himself, weirdly enough, because I think it's very likely that the devil has mostly just overwritten Emu's own consciousness and is now behind the scenes running the show here. So why do I think that this Mu is from the moon, other than that his name is the first part of the word moon? Well, with Emu's devil fruit transformation and reveal on Elbaf, it's kind of changed everything that we thought we knew about his character. His true form, if it is actually his true form, right, very much appears to be Lunarian. As of the writing of this video, depending when you watch it, Emu's official colors have not been revealed yet, but as far as the manga goes, Emu at least seems to have the same coloring as King, with dark skin and white hair. Now obviously this could just change, maybe Emu's color will turn out to be devil red or green or a dark shade of pink, who knows. But then there's also the flaming black ring covered in eyes behind him that just looks like a souped up demonic Lunarian flame. There's the giant black angel wings that he can sprout at will that just look exactly like King's. So there are just enough features that Emu shares with the Lunarians that even if he's not a Lunarian per se, there's definitely some connection there in some way, shape, or form. And then of course, we have to talk about his connection to lunar technology. Because another speculation I've had recently is that Emu's powers might actually be based on technology and not just magic. Now, of course, you too can harness the awesome powers of both magic and technology over on the Ohara Patreon, the sponsor of today's video, where you can see behind the scenes videos and vlogs, because I love living in Japan. I've been here for 5 years now, and while I don't get to, dive into it too much on this channel specifically, since I'm talking about One Piece and not Japan, over on my Patreon I actually get to show you guys all types of cool stuff, like some behind the scenes content of checking out some One Piece pop-up cafes or sharing my most recent big road trip I did through the Japanese countryside with my parents. So yeah, check it out if you're already supporting, thanks a lot. Sponsor over. Now, just like the people on the Blue Planet who saw the Lunarians' advanced moon technology and assumed that they must be godly beings, the One Piece audience might be going through the very same thing right now, and what we just assume is abyssal devil magic is actually just futuristic sci-fi tech beyond our understanding, kind of the direction that One Piece has now just taken ever since we went to Egghead Island. After all, Emu's power has been revealed to be devil fruit, as if it's like the progenitor of all the other devil fruits, possibly the original model, right? So when Vegapunk gave his brief explanation of devil fruits, or his theory, his personal one, he represented them as advanced ancient tech, basically. In fact, he was able to reverse engineer them to create the artificial devil fruits and then even distill them into their most basic essence to create the green blood with the lineage factor that gives the Seraphim their powers too. And if these devil fruits are a form of ancient technology, that could also explain how figures like Nika and Mu allowed their own will to live on by embedding their will inside these fruits so that people could gain their powers down the line at some point in history. And we can actually add this to the fact that with Emu's big reveal, alongside with all of the other crazy devil imagery, he also has these strange markings on his skin that look a whole lot like circuitry, as if his very appearance is signaling that his powers could be of technological nature. But maybe the final nail in the coffin actually comes from Saint Shepard Summers and his strange mechanical heart. Summers did not exactly hide much in his reaction to Zoro speculating that cutting apart his mechanical heart would bypass his immortality and just kill him permanently. It actually seems like that the most magical of the Holy Knight's abilities, immortality and regeneration, could actually be connected to an internal piece of machinery. And what's actually even crazier is that I can actually tie this mechanical heart right back to the moon, drawing an even stronger connection between Mu and the moon than we already have been doing. Because I want you to take a look at this weird gouge on Summer's mechanical heart here. Do you know that we've actually seen this exact same style of gouge in the story before? Is it gouge? Am I pronouncing this correctly? Gauche? Gauge. Jesus Christ. Alright. Gauge it is. Well, if we flip back to Enel's cover story, then you can see that this style of gauge is a central part of the Space Pirates character design. And for anyone who skipped over all the cover stories, first of all, you shouldn't go read them. You can actually flip through them on the wiki. But yeah, there are actual space pirates canonically in One Piece. These two gauges are exactly the same. So could Imu then be using interstellar technology? I totally think so. Actually, I think it's more likely than anything, but I will also acknowledge that there are a couple of other times that we've seen this style of gauge too. I mean, one, funnily enough, was in the same cover story when we saw Dr. Tsukimi's lab. One of the most mysterious characters to me. I kind of want to make a video on him, but it's kind of hard to place him. He seems crazy relevant. But yeah, he was in the lab on Earth that then saw stuff explode on the moon, who was also creating the automata, and it's very unclear when this is actually happening. Like, is this shortly before NL arrives on the moon, or is this like thousands of years ago? I have no idea. And weirdly enough, since his automata happen to like coincidentally look identical to the ones that NL found on the moon, other than, you know, their cute little outfits that they dress up in, then I mean, is there something else going on here that we're just completely missing? Was he actually recreating lunar tech that he somehow had access to? Like, it's very, like, this character is so weird in many, many ways, and I feel like somehow it's gonna be relevant. Like, really, I think that NL might have been doing the same kind of thing when he, of course, built the Arc Maxime, which just looks exactly like the flying ship on the mural. I think it's most likely that the Lunarians actually brought blueprints for things like the Arc Maxime, which is basically a spacefaring like vessel, and these automata robots, and now some modern people have been recreating this ancient tech in the same way that Vegapunk has been recreating technology from the Void Century and before that as well. Who I want to point out has of course also like recreated his own versions of these, you know, with the Pacifista and the Seraphim, who are kind of like upgraded and better automata as well. And then the one other place that I've actually noticed this style of gauge, was it gauge? Jesus Christ. Gauge. And then actually the one other place that I've noticed this style of gauge is on the revolutionary commander Lindbergh, who, as a mink, presumably has a Sulong form, which makes him also connected to the moon. Though I'm not ready to spin this off into a Lindbergh as an alien theory just yet. Maybe we'll get more evidence for him at some point, I don't know. As you can imagine, I've been looking through tons of panels on Vegapunk's lab on Egghead Island or other cyborgs in the series, and I could be missing something. Like, I'd love for someone to tell me if they find this kind of mechanical gauge somewhere else, but so far at least, everyone I've been able to find does have some kind of connection to the moon, even if it's not maybe the strongest one. But if I'm right, and all this evidence does point to figures like Mu and like Nika being originally from the moon and that civilization up there that somehow got destroyed or abandoned, then that still doesn't explain how a god from the moon came to be known as the sun god down here on the blue planets. I believe it went a little bit like this. Nika, Mu, and another couple gods from the moon ruled over the blue planet, taking control of the unlimited power of the forbidden sun beneath the surface. They took the inhabitants of the planet as slaves, forcing them to work, harvesting their own planet's resources. Also, side note, the idea of outsiders colonizing a location and taking control of its most valuable resource would make it so that Skypiea was somehow even more foreshadowing the rest of the series than we already know it did, since that was the exact conflict between the Skypieans and the Shandians as an allegory for real-life colonialism. It would actually bring that theme from being the message of one arc to being like an overarching message of all of One Piece. But the thing is, I believe that one of these four colonizing gods did not agree with the others. He actually saw the pain and abuse inflicted on the people of the world and knew that it was actually wrong to do that. The Forbidden Sun, whatever it is, was part of their own planet, and yet they were deprived of its powers, and so pretty much Prometheus style, the Greek titan, not the homie, he actually gave it back to the people. This god from the moon gave the people the power of the sun. He set them free. He did battle against the other gods like the Earth God, who I think was Imu's predecessor Mu, on their behalf. And this hero, Nika, brought freedom alongside with this new dawn. However, Mu was likely of the mind that if he couldn't have the Forbidden Sun, no one can have the Forbidden Sun, and in this battle, the Forbidden Sun was destroyed, covering the world in flames and darkness. Mu and those who sided with him in this war, who might have become known as the Lunarians, flew too close to the forbidden sun, so to speak, and in trying so hard to harness this power of the sun, they gained the Lunarian back flames, but also permanently scorched their wings, explaining why there's no one depicted with black wings on the mural on the moon or on the first world part of the Elbaf mural, but only on the left side when we see presumably the second world where some Lunarian is fighting with Joy Boy. The point is, none of the sky races apparently had these black wings until the first world ended. Nika had freed the world, but in doing so, he had also destroyed it, creating the myths throughout the world of Nika the Liberator, but also Nika the Destroyer. But above all, he was the person who'd brought the dawn, the sun god Nika. But while this sun god was actually from the moon, which also, by the way, I didn't even talk about it in this video, but in the original Japanese, you probably remember this, the sun god is the only god written with like apostrophes, like the sun god is how Oda wrote it. But anyways, that doesn't mean that there wasn't a real sun god, or if my personal theory is correct, a sun goddess. Because did you ever take a close look at the cover of Kuma's Bible? Like the one that teaches the religion of Nika? It took me forever to actually take a look at the cover. There's a woman there, lit up by the sun, and you can learn all about the secret sun goddess of the One Piece world in this video right here. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching. Thanks to our fantastic Patreon members again. Please check that out if you want to support the channel. It really, really makes a difference, and it just means a lot. And I'm like very happy to, make some bonus content on Patreon as well. Also, some cool stuff coming up. But for now, I'll see you on Sunday. You go, watch something else.